There is a stretch of shoreline outside Frankfort, Michigan, where the wind of the lake sounds like something alive, something patient, something that knows your name before you've told it. Eleanor Brooks heard it for the first time on the 14th of December, the night her only daughter drove her to a 1986 Winnebago at the edge of a half-empty RV park and did not come back. She was 78 years old. In all those years, she had never once slept anywhere her husband had not built or chosen for her. And on that night, standing inside a metal box that smelled of mildew and old propane, holding a tin of letters from children who were now in their 50s, Eleanor Brooks realized that the world she had spent a lifetime trusting had quietly, without warning, closed its door behind her. People would later say she should have seen it coming. People always say that. They say it about floods and bankruptcies and daughters who stop calling on Sundays. But Eleanor had not seen it coming, because Eleanor had spent 46 years believing that the woman she raised would not do this, and belief, when it is that old, does not come with an expiration date. It simply holds until the night it doesn't. But what those people didn't know, what Eleanor herself would not know for 8 more frozen nights, was that someone had already seen her. Someone who was at that very moment driving past the RV park with a sleeping boy in the passenger seat and a Tupperware of her dead grandmother's chicken soup on the back seat. Someone who would change everything. Before we go on, if stories like this one mean something to you, stories about people who refuse to be forgotten, take a moment and subscribe. It's free. It costs nothing but a tap. And it means that when the next story comes, you'll be here for it. Stay with us tonight. This one is worth it. The Winnebago groaned. That was the word Eleanor settled on by the third night. Not creaked, not rattled. Groaned. The way an old man groans when he stands too fast and his knees remember every winter they have ever carried. The wind found every seam. It came through the rubber gaskets around the windows where the seal had cracked into brown tributaries. It came through the gap beneath the metal door where the foam insulation had crumbled to dust. It came through the vent above the stove where some long ago owner had stuffed a balled-up dishcloth in place of a working flap. 8 feet wide, 20 feet long. That was the entire country Eleanor and Walter Brooks now occupied. Walter was on the cold linoleum with a flashlight clenched between his teeth. He had been working on the propane regulator for 40 minutes. The bolt was frozen. His knuckles were the color of old strawberry swollen at the joints where arthritis had been settling in for years. The flashlight beam shook when he breathed, just slightly, just enough for Eleanor to notice and pretend she hadn't. She was sitting on the booth seat by the window. She was holding a book. The book was upside down. She did not realize this for several pages. And when she did not correct it because correcting it would mean admitting she had not been reading. And admitting she had not been reading would mean admitting what she had actually been doing, which was listening to the rhythm of her husband's breathing and counting the seconds between each exhale. Walter's voice came around the flashlight, muffled and warm. "Almost got it, Ellie. Take your time, Walt. Cold? I'm reading." He grunted. It was the grunt he always used when he knew she was lying and chose gently to let her. 57 years of marriage had given them a shared language far more nuanced than English. The grunt meant, "I know you are cold. I know the book is upside down. I'm going to fix this anyway because that is what I have done every day since 1961. And I do not intend to stop now just because our daughter has left us in a metal box to die." He did not say any of this. He grunted. She turned a page she had not read. The handkerchief in her sleeve felt heavier than it should have. She had been coughing into it for 5 days now, tucking it beneath her pillow before Walter could see. In the mornings, the handkerchief was darker than it had been the night before. She did not look at it in the light. She folded it carefully, the way she had folded handkerchiefs, her entire adult life corners to center, to edge a small tight square, and she slipped it into the pillowcase before Walter's eyes found her. The bolt gave. The regulator hissed. Then it caught, and the little blue flame inside the heater bloomed small and stubborn like a crocus pushing through March snow. Walter sat back on his heels. He looked for a moment like a much older man than he was, which was saying something because 81 was already older than he had planned to be. Got it? I knew you would. He climbed up onto the bench beside her, pulled the second blanket around both of them, and put his arm across her shoulders. She leaned into him. The cold had gotten into her bones 3 nights ago and had not left. But Walter's arm was warm. Walter's arm had been warm since they were teenagers, since the autumn of 1960 when she was 14 and he was 17, and he had put his jacket around her at a bonfire behind the old Grange Hall. And she had thought without knowing why, this is the arm I will grow old under. She had been right. She had not known then how far old would go. Outside Lake Michigan exhaled. That was the other thing she had decided. The lake breathed. A long, slow push of ice against rock. A pause. Another push. In the pauses, she could hear nothing. No cars, no voices, no music from another RV. Just the great, dark fact of the lake stretched out beyond the glass, frozen at the edges, restless underneath. She thought very quietly that the lake was the loneliest thing she had ever been near. Then she thought more quietly still that perhaps it wasn't. Walt? I'm sorry. For what? For raising a daughter who'd do this. He opened his eyes. He looked at her for a long time. Then, we raised her together, Ellie. I know. So if there's blame, there isn't. It's not blame Walt, I just don't understand. She put her hand on his. His hand was cold. His hand had been cold for 40 minutes. His hand had been warming hers since they were teenagers. I don't understand either, she said. The kitchen on Forest Avenue. The kitchen that smelled always and forever of cinnamon and lemon polish. The kitchen where Eleanor had hung curtains, made from an old sheet in 1962 because they could not afford real ones, and where years later she had replaced those curtains with proper fabric, and then in 1989 taken the old sheet curtains back out of the linen closet because she had missed them. The kitchen where Diane had carved her name into the table leg at age 6, capital letters, uneven, Diane. Walter had been furious. Eleanor had said, Walt, let it be. 40 years from now, we'll be glad it's there. She had been right. It had been 40 years and the table was gone now, and the name was gone. The kitchen where on an afternoon in late November, Diane had come in carrying a briefcase. The way a woman carries something she wants you to take seriously. She set it down on the table. On the table leg, where just below the surface the word Diane was still carved in childish capitals that no one but Eleanor would ever think to look for. Diane Brooks Ashford, 47 years old, hair pulled back into the kind of ponytail women wear when they want to be heard by men in offices. She had her mother's eyes and her father's hands, and none of the patience of either. Bradley waited in the car. Bradley always waited in the car. Mom, Dad, I talked to my financial planner. She uncapped a yellow highlighter. She moved through the pages quickly, 3 inches thick. Walter had been an electrician for 42 years. He knew what a wiring diagram looked like. He knew what an instruction manual looked like. He did not know what these looked like. Read it to me, Diane. I'll highlight the parts you need to sign. That's faster. Eleanor, who had been packing little tins of Christmas cookies, each tied with a red ribbon, each one for a different family at the church shelter. Eleanor's hands kept moving even as she listened. Her hands always kept moving. Her voice came quiet from the counter. Honey, could you read me the highlighted parts? My eyes. Mom, it's nothing. It's just transfer language. Transfer of what? Of the title to the trust. The trust is in your name. It's the same thing as owning the house. It's just protected. Walter set the pen down. Diane, Dad, please. When did you last come for Sunday dinner? The kitchen got very quiet. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, faintly Bradley's car idled in the driveway, exhaust curling white into the cold. Last year, maybe, Bradley and I. Dad, please don't make this about that. Eleanor reached across the table. She took Walter's hand. He looked at her. He looked at the woman he had married in 1961 in a little Methodist church on Main Street when she was 15 and he was 18, and her father had said, "You better not break her, son." And Walter had said, "No, sir, never." And he had meant it for every single year since. He picked up the pen. He signed. Eleanor signed. 2 signatures. 2 careful looping schoolteacher signatures. 2 slow traces of a life. Great. Diane stacked the papers, tucked them into the briefcase, snapped it shut. So here's the thing. The thing. Those 2 words would echo in Eleanor's chest for months afterward. The thing. As though what came next were an afterthought, a footnote, a small logistical detail like where to park. While the trust paperwork goes through, it's a few weeks, maybe a month, you can't technically live in the house. Insurance reasons, title transition. It's all very boring legal stuff. What kind of place? It's by the lake. Mom, you always said you loved the lake. Remember the cottage we used to rent at Crystal Lake when I was little? Eleanor's hands stopped moving. For the first time in the entire conversation, her hands stopped moving over the cookie tins. I remember. It's like that, a little place by the water, for a few weeks, while Bradley and I get everything sorted. She smiled. It was a real estate smile. Eleanor knew real estate smiles. Her sister Margaret had been an agent in Grand Rapids for 30 years. Margaret had practiced that smile in the mirror. This was Margaret's smile on her daughter's face. They packed 2 suitcases. That was what Diane said they could bring. Eleanor stood in front of the linen closet. Inside was a quilt her mother had stitched in 1958 from the dresses of Eleanor's grandmother. There was the tin of letters from students, 46 years of letters going back to her very first class, when a girl named Hannah Kowalski had given her a clay turkey on the last day of school and whispered, "Mrs. Brooks, my mom said it looks like a potato, but you said it looks like a turkey, and I will believe you forever." Eleanor took the tin of letters. She did not take the quilt. She would always wonder later why she did not take the quilt. She would decide later that it was because some part of her had known. Some part of her had known the quilt was not coming back, and she had wanted in her last hour in her own home to pretend she didn't know. Walter took his toolbox, the first thing he had ever bought with his own money. 1953 Sears and Roebuck, Pittsburgh, $12.75. The man behind the counter had asked, "You serious about this, son?" And Walter had said, "Yes, sir." And the man had said, "Then this is the right tool for you." And Walter had carried it home on the bus. He had wired 3,000 houses with that toolbox. He took his father's pocket watch. He took his Korean service medal. He took the little wooden plaque Eleanor had made him for their 20th anniversary. Walter Brooks, the man who fixes everything except his wife's complaining, which he doesn't intend to stop. He did not take the framed photograph of Diane at her college graduation. He would always wonder later why he didn't take it. He would decide later that he had known. He had known the same thing Eleanor had known. The drive was 9 miles. Diane talked the whole way. She talked about her listings. She talked about Bradley's new client. She talked about the renovations she would do to the kitchen. "Mom will redo the cabinets. White shaker. You'll love it." And Eleanor sat in the back seat with her hands folded over the tin of letters and looked out the window at the bare trees and the gray December sky and did not say a word. The car turned off M22. It went down a smaller road, then a smaller road still. It came to a chain-link gate with a faded sign, Lakeshore RV Park, and below that, in smaller letters, "Welcome Neighbor." The man at the gate was named Russ Taverner, 54, a face like a topographical map. He came out of the small office trailer when Diane pulled up. He looked at the Audi. He looked at Diane. He looked longer at the two old people in the back seat. You the daughter? Yes, Diane, we spoke on the phone. You got the cash? She handed him an envelope. He counted by feel through the paper. The way men who have been paid in cash many times in their lives count by feel. Number 22, end of the row, closest to the lake. He paused. It's the oldest one I got. It's what was available. Rustavana stared at her. He had a daughter named Becca who lived in Marquette and called him every Sunday at 4 without fail. He looked at Diane Brooks Ashford. He looked at the two old people in the back seat. He almost said something. He didn't. He would think about that later. He would think about it for the rest of his life. Number 22. Thank you, Mr. Taverner. The Winnebago was the color of old butter. It sat at the end of the row closest to the lake, which sounded romantic. But on a night like this, with the wind coming off the ice, was not romantic at all. The smell came out first. Mildew, stale propane, something like wet newspaper, something like a basement that had flooded once and never quite finished drying. Eleanor took a step up, then another. Inside the booth seat by the window, the tiny kitchenette, the bunk above the cab, the bathroom with the door that didn't close, the bed at the back full-size sagging in the middle, made up with a blanket that was clean but pilled, a small folding table, a two-burner stove, a heater that when Walter touched it made a sound like a cat clearing its throat. Where's your mother's piano? Walter said it standing in the doorway, one hand on the cold metal of the door. Dad, the piano, Diane. It didn't fit. In storage. It was old, Dad. I had it appraised. I got a good price. The money is in your storage account. Walter looked at his daughter, his only child. The girl he had walked down the aisle in a white dress and given to a man named Bradley Ashford, who even then had reminded Walter of a salesman. It was your mother's father's piano. Dad, please. He built it, your grandfather, with his own hands for your mother as a wedding gift. Dad, I know. You don't know, you can't know, because if you knew, you wouldn't have sold it. Diane's mouth opened. Diane's mouth closed. She looked for 1 second like a little girl who had just realized she was about to be in trouble. Then the look passed. The real estate face came back. Dad, we can talk about this later. It's getting dark. She put $400 in an envelope on the small folding table. For groceries. She would call after New Year's. After New Year's. She and Bradley had a thing in Cabo. Eleanor sat down on the booth seat. She sat down very carefully. The way you sit down when you have just realized that the floor you thought was solid is in fact a thin layer of ice over very deep water. Diane, it's the week before Christmas. I know, Mom. I know what week it is. I'll bring you a present when I get back. She kissed Eleanor on the top of the head. The way a niece kisses an aunt she doesn't really know. She went out. The door swung shut. The wind caught it, slammed it the rest of the way. Walter stood in the doorway for a long time after the Audi's taillights disappeared down the gravel road. He did not move. The cold came in around him. Eleanor pulled the blanket up to her chin and did not speak because she understood. He was not standing in the doorway because he wanted to. He was standing in the doorway because if he closed the door, it would be real. So he stood there. He stood there until his hands went white. He stood until Eleanor coughed once softly into her handkerchief, and the sound of that cough was the thing that broke him. He closed the door. He turned around. He looked at his wife sitting on the booth seat in a coat she had owned since 1998 in a Winnebago that smelled like wet newspaper, holding a tin of letters from children who were now in their 50s. His voice came very quiet. Ellie, it'll be all right. She smiled at him. I know, Walt. They were both lying. They both knew the other one was lying. And they had been married long enough to know that this was sometimes the kindest thing two people could do. The first night was the worst. That was the thing Eleanor would later tell herself. The first night was the worst, which meant every night after it was technically less bad. This was not true. But she would tell herself that anyway, because that was the kind of woman she was, the kind who had taught third grade for 46 years and knew that you could tell a child anything was going to be all right. And if you said it firmly enough, sometimes the child would believe you. And sometimes, if you were lucky, you would believe yourself. She did not believe herself that night. She lay on the sagging bed, listening to Walter pretending to sleep beside her, listening to the wind that knew her name, and she thought about every Christmas she had ever spent on Forest Avenue. She thought about 1963, their first Christmas in that house. They had been 20 and 23, and Walter had brought home a tree too tall for the living room, and they had sawed it down right there, laughing sawdust everywhere. She thought about the year Diane was born. Eleanor had been 36, had thought she would never be a mother. And the doctor had taken her hand and said, "Mrs. Brooks, I have something to tell you." And Eleanor had cried for an hour in the parking lot because she had expected him to say cancer. And instead, he said baby. She thought about 1991. Diane, 12, carving her name into the table leg. Walter furious. Eleanor saying, "Walt, let it be. 40 years from now, we'll be glad it's there." She turned her head on the pillow. The handkerchief was beneath it. She thought very carefully, "I will not cough." She coughed. She coughed into the handkerchief and felt the wet warmth of it before she could see it. In the dark, she did not look. She tucked it deeper beneath the pillow. By the 8th night, certain things had become routine. The propane had to be coaxed every evening. Walter warmed the bolt with a candle flame, used one wrench, then another, then the first wrench again harder. The cough was worse. The 3 pills on the folding table were the last 3. Calvediol. Take one by mouth twice daily. Refill none. Walter did not know about the refill. He knew there were pills. He did not know there were 3. She had been taking half doses for 4 days to stretch them, the way her own mother had stretched butter during the war by mixing it with margarine. Her heart had been telling her about it. Her heart had been telling her loudly. But she did not tell Walter, because Walter had been working for every year of their marriage to keep her safe. And she did not have the heart, bad pun, the kind she would have made out loud in a happier kitchen, to tell him the project was failing. The 8th night was a Thursday. She knew because Walter had said over the canned soup at noon, "Ellie, it's the 22nd, 3 days until Christmas." And she had said, "I know Walt." And he had said, "We'll figure something out." And she had said, "I know Walt." And the third, "I know Walt," had taken everything she had. He had gone outside that afternoon. She had watched him through the fogged window. He had found somewhere the old half-broken pruning, saw the previous owner had left in the bin under the booth. He was sawing a small branch off a young pine at the edge of the trees behind the park. He was 81 years old, a Korean War veteran, an electrician who had once climbed a 40-foot pole in an ice storm to restore power to a hospital nursery. And he was sawing a pine branch because his wife had said in passing 2 days earlier that she was sad there was no Christmas tree. She had not meant for him to do anything about it. She had said it the way a person says, "I'm sad about the weather," just out of her mouth, not a request. But Walter Brooks, after 57 years, did not know the difference between his wife being sad and his wife asking him to fix it. He never had. He never would. He came back with the branch. He set it in the corner in an empty coffee can filled with sand from the parking lot. He looked at Eleanor. Eleanor was looking at the branch. Tears slid down one, then another, then a small breath, then nothing. The crying of a woman who has cried in many kitchens over many decades and has gotten very efficient at it. "Ellie, I didn't mean..." "I know, you didn't mean for me to. I know, Ellie." He sat beside her. He put his arm around her shoulders, which had always been his answer to her tears, which had always somehow been enough. "It's a beautiful tree, Walt. It's a branch. It's a beautiful branch." She decorated it. There was not much. An old paper chain a student had made her years ago, a little girl named Maggie Olson, who had spent 3 weeks gluing strips of construction paper into loops and presented the chain on the last day of school. "Mrs. Brooks, I made this for your tree, but my mom said don't be mad if it's not good enough." And Eleanor had hugged her and said, "Maggie Olson, this is the best paper chain I have ever seen in my life." She had kept it in her classroom every December for the rest of her career. She draped the chain on the pine branch carefully. The paper was old. The glue had gone brown. The colors had faded red, almost pink-green, almost gray. But it held together, the way some things made carefully by small hands just hold together. On top, the only other thing she had, a handkerchief, a clean one, folded into a small triangle, like a star. Walter looked at it. He did not speak for a while. Then, in a voice she had not heard from him in many years, "Ellie, it's beautiful. It's a branch with a paper chain. It's a tree, Ellie. It's our tree." She put her head on his shoulder. Outside, the lake breathed in and out. She did not cough for 2 whole minutes, which on the 8th night was a victory. After Walter fell asleep or pretended to, Eleanor slid out from under the blanket. She went to the folding table. 3 pills. She picked one up, small white oval. Across the middle, a tiny line, the kind you would use to break it in half if you needed to stretch your supply. She had been breaking them in half. 4 days. Tomorrow there would be 2, the day after 1, the day after that none. She held the pill in her palm, the thing keeping her alive, the thing she had 3 of, the thing that when it ran out would mean. She put it back. She did not let herself finish the sentence. She went to the window over the sink. She wiped a circle of condensation away. Outside Lake Michigan was a great black plate of ice. The stars above it were the same stars she had grown up looking at in farm country 80 years ago. The same exact stars. Everything else had changed. She put her forehead against the cold glass. She closed her eyes, if there is anyone listening. She had not used those words in a long time. Eleanor had been a Methodist her whole life, a Methodist who said, "Heavenly Father and dear Lord, and in Jesus' name." She had not said, "If there is anyone listening," since she was a girl on a farm the year her own mother died, and she had whispered into the cornfield, "If there is anyone listening, please don't take her." Someone had been listening then. It just hadn't been someone who could do anything. She said now to the dark over the frozen lake, "If there is anyone listening, I don't need to be saved. I am too old to be saved. I just need someone, please, just someone to remember my name." She opened her eyes. The lake exhaled once, and out beyond the Winnebago, beyond the chain-link gate of the RV park, beyond the gravel road and the highway, and the long row of darkened storefronts on Main Street, a 2009 Toyota Corolla was driving home. The Corolla belonged to a woman named Marin Halverson. Marin was 34. She had hair the color of late wheat and the tired, careful face of a woman who had been keeping a small boy alive on tip money for 3 years. The boy was asleep in the passenger seat. His name was Theo. He was 8. He was wearing a coat 2 sizes too big because the thrift store on the highway had only had the large in his color. And Marin had decided that an 8-year-old boy could grow into a coat, but he could not grow out of being cold. Theo had eaten dinner at the brewery where Marin worked. The cook, an older man named Eckhart, had a soft spot for the kid. Eckhart had been making Theo a grilled cheese every week for 2 years and refusing to put it on Marin's tab. Marin had stopped trying to pay. Some kindnesses she had learned you just had to accept. She turned off Main Street. She turned onto M22. She drove the long curve where 3 years earlier in February, a man named Cole Halverson had hit a patch of black ice coming home from a double at the shipyard, and his truck had gone over the embankment into the snow. Marin did not look at the curve. She never looked at the curve. She turned onto Bayshore Drive. She passed the chain-link gate. She drove down the row. And as she drove with her sleeping boy and her shift apron still smelling of fryer grease in the back, she glanced without meaning to the way you glance at things you've seen 100 times at the Winnebago at the end of the row. Number 22. She stopped. She stopped the car. She did not know why. She would never be able to explain why. But she stopped. There was a small pine branch in the window. There was a paper chain on the branch. There was a folded handkerchief on top in the shape of a star. And there was, for just 1 second, the silhouette of a woman with her forehead pressed against the glass. Mom, Theo was awake. Mom, why'd we stop? Nothing, baby. Mom, there's a Christmas tree on that old camper. I know, baby. Who lives there? I don't know. She sat with her foot on the brake. She looked at the woman in the window. The woman did not see her. The woman had her eyes closed, her forehead against the glass. She looked, and Marin could not say how she knew this. Because she could not see the woman's face, she looked like a woman who was praying. Marin had not prayed in 3 years. She had stopped praying on the night a state trooper knocked on her door and said, "Mrs. Halverson, there's been an accident." But she felt, watching the woman in the window, something. A small pull, like a string in her chest. The way she had felt when she was 11 years old, watching her own mother dying in a county hospital bed, and a night nurse had come in with a paper cup of strawberry milkshake and said, "Honey, somebody's going to remember you tonight. Don't you ever forget that somebody did." She had not forgotten. She had carried that strawberry milkshake in her chest for 23 years like a coin in her pocket. She pulled the Corolla up to her own RV number 14, 40 feet down from number 22. She turned off the engine. She sat with her hands on the wheel. Then, "Theo, stay in the car for just a minute. Mommy'll be right back." "Are you mad?" "No, baby." "Are you sad?" "No, baby." "Mom." "Yeah." "Did you see a ghost?" She laughed. She didn't mean to. It came out of her in a dry little cough of a laugh. "No, baby, I didn't see a ghost. I saw a neighbor. Mommy's just going to bring her some soup." Inside number 14, which smelled like home, which was to say, it smelled like one woman and one small boy, and 3 years of doing the best you could with very little money, and a great deal of love, there was on the stove a Tupperware of chicken soup, her grandmother's recipe. The grandmother from Trondheim, the one who had crossed the Atlantic and learned English by reading soup labels at the grocery store. White pepper, a single bay leaf, a long slow simmer. It was Marin's favorite thing in the world. She picked it up. She picked up 2 clean blankets. She picked up the small green propane tank she had bought that morning from the hardware store. She picked up a pen. She tore a corner of a brown paper grocery bag. She wrote in her quick slanting hand, "My mom died young. I know what it is to be cold and alone. Marin RV number 14. Theo and I are right next door if you ever need." She put the note on top of the Tupperware. She walked outside. Theo was watching through the windshield. She gave him a small wave. He gave her his Theo wave back, the 2-finger wave he had made up at 4 because he'd decided big waves were for grown-ups and he wanted his own. She walked across the gravel. The wind hit her face like an open hand. She kept walking, 40 feet, 30, 20. She reached the door of number 22. She set the Tupperware on the metal step, the blankets on top, the propane tank beside it, the note on top of everything. She lifted her hand to knock. She paused. She thought, "Don't. Just leave it. Just go." But she could still see behind her eyes the silhouette of a woman with her forehead against the glass. She knocked. 3 small knocks. The way you knock on the door of someone you don't want to startle. Inside, Eleanor heard the knock. She did not move. She did not move because in the cold, in the dark, on the 8th night, she did not believe it was real. She thought, "I have prayed for someone and my mind has made me a knock." Walter sat up. Ellie was that. Yes. What? Yes, someone is at the door. He looked at her. She looked at him. For 1 suspended second, they looked at each other. Then he got up. He went to the door. He did not check the window. He did not call out. He was 81 years old, a Korean War veteran, a master electrician who had carried his own toolbox onto a Greyhound bus at 17. He was not at this point in his life afraid of opening a door. He opened it. The wind came in first. Then Eleanor saw over Walter's shoulder from the bed at the back of the Winnebago a young woman standing on the metal step, hair the color of late wheat, tired eyes, a coat too thin for the night, holding a Tupperware of soup, 2 blankets, and a small green propane tank. The young woman's voice came steady and quiet. "Evening, sir. I'm Marin. I live in number 14. I just thought maybe you folks could use. We don't take charity." Walter said it standing very straight, square shoulders, the voice of a man who had been on top of 40-foot poles in ice storms. Marin did not step back. "Sir, this isn't charity. My boy and I, we live next door. That's all. Neighbors help neighbors, please." And from the bed at the back of the Winnebago, Eleanor coughed. She did not mean to. She had been holding it. She had been holding it for 40 minutes, counting the seconds the way you count the seconds between lightning and thunder. And the cough came, the bad one, the wet one, the one she had been hiding from Walter for 8 nights. It came out into the cold, into the doorway, into the ears of a woman she had never met. Marin heard it. Marin looked past Walter into the Winnebago, and her eyes, in 1/2 second, took in the booth seat and the folding table, and the pine branch with the paper chain, and the woman on the bed at the back. The woman with her hand pressed to her mouth, the bluish lips, the handkerchief that was darker than it should have been. Marin's face did not change. Marin had been an 11-year-old girl in a hospital room once. Marin knew without thinking what she was looking at. She set the Tupperware down, the blankets on top, the propane tank beside it, the note on top of everything. She said gently, "I'll leave it here, sir. You don't have to take it, but it's here. And if your wife, if she needs anything tonight, you knock on number 14. You knock as hard as you want. I'll be up. Theo and I are right here." She turned. She walked away, back across the gravel, back to the Corolla where Theo was watching through the windshield, his 2-finger wave already waiting. She got in. She did not look back. She drove the 40 feet to number 14. She carried her sleeping boy inside. Walter stood in the doorway. He stared at the Tupperware, at the blankets, at the green propane tank, at the note. The wind was still coming in. His hands were going white again. Eleanor's voice came from the bed, soft. "Walt, close the door." He did not close the door. He bent down. He picked up the note. He read it. He read it twice. He read it 3 times. "My mom died young. I know what it is to be cold and alone. Marin RV number 14. Theo and I are right next door if you ever need." He stood up. He held the note. He looked one more time down the road toward number 14, where the warm yellow light from a small kitchen window had just blinked on. He came inside. He closed the door. He set the Tupperware on the folding table next to the 3 pills. He took off the lid. The smell rose. Chicken and bay leaf and white pepper. The smell of someone's grandmother's kitchen. The smell of soup made on a Sunday by a woman who had not known she was making it for them. And Eleanor on the bed at the back of a Winnebago that had been the loneliest place she had ever known, until exactly 4 minutes ago Eleanor put her face into her hands. She did not cry, not yet. She had not given herself permission to cry yet. She put her face into her hands the way you do when you have realized very late at night, in a place you did not choose, surrounded by a life you did not plan, that you have been heard. That someone somewhere had remembered her name. Morning came slow. It came the way mornings come in late December in Michigan. Pale, reluctant, a gray that wasn't quite light yet, just the absence of full dark. Walter opened his eyes. He counted Eleanor's breaths. In, out, in, out. A small pause. Then in again, still there. The Tupperware was on the folding table. He had not dreamed it. That was his first clear thought. He had not dreamed the young woman on the metal step. The soup was real. The blankets were real. The note folded in half next to the 3 pills was real. He picked up the note. He read it again. He stood there long enough that behind him, Eleanor opened her eyes and watched him without his knowing. She watched her husband in the half-dark holding a piece of brown paper bag. She watched his shoulders. You learn the shoulders of the man you sleep next to for 57 years. You learn what they mean. These shoulders meant something has broken open in me and I do not know how to put it back. She closed her eyes before he turned around. He warmed the soup on the two-burner stove. He stirred it with a plastic spoon they had found in a drawer. The smell rose again, chicken bay leaf white pepper, and filled the 8-foot width of their world. Ellie, eat first. Walt, eat first, Ellie. He brought her the bowl. She took it. She took the spoon. She would not let him feed her, not yet. You eat too. I had crackers. Walter Brooks, he sighed. He got himself a bowl. They ate. 8 feet apart, looking at each other across the narrow space. She did not tell him it was the best thing she had eaten in 9 days. She did not have to. She just kept eating one small spoonful at a time until the bowl was empty. She set it down. She looked at the Tupperware lid. She said quietly, "I'd like to keep this so I can give it back to her with something inside it." He nodded. By 10 that morning, Walter Brooks was on his knees in front of Marin Halverson's porch light. He had not announced this. He had not asked Eleanor. He had simply put on his coat, picked up his toolbox, and walked the 40 feet. He had stood outside number 14 for 30 seconds practicing what he was going to say because he was 81 and proud, and did not know even now how to receive without giving something back. He knocked. Marin opened the door in plaid flannel pajamas with a sweatshirt thrown over them. Her hair was in a sloppy knot. She had a chipped mug that read, "World's Okayest Mom." "Mr. Brooks is everything. Your porch light. It was flickering last night when you came up the steps. Bad ground probably. Loose neutral. Easy fix." She stared at him. He stared back. He was holding his toolbox with both hands. "Mr. Brooks, you don't need to." His voice shifted. It was not the voice of a man asking permission. It was the voice of a man who had once climbed a 40-foot pole in an ice storm, and who had once sat at a kitchen table and signed away his house because he trusted his daughter, and who was now standing on a stranger's doorstep with the only currency he had left. Please let an old man earn his neighbor's soup. Theo was at the kitchen table. Tractor pajamas, hair going in 3 directions, a waffle with peanut butter. He looked at Walter. Walter looked at him. "You the boy. I'm Theo T. Michael Halverson." "That's a strong name, son. Halverson. Norwegian. Mom says we were Vikings." Walter did something he had not done in 8 nights. He smiled. Small, tired, but real. And Theo, who knew the way 8-year-old boys know the difference between real and fake, smiled back. "Vikings is good." "You think so?" "Vikings fix things. Vikings built ships. My dad fixed engines at the shipyard." Walter paused. He set the toolbox down on the counter, slowly buying himself the extra seconds a man needs before doing something hard. "Your dad's name, so Cole Halverson. Where is he?" Theo looked at his mother. Marin from the doorway, her voice gentle. "Theo, tell Mr. Walter where Daddy is." The boy said it the way only an 8-year-old can. No decoration, no apology. "He's dead. He hit ice on M22. Walter knelt, one knee on the linoleum, eye level. He said very quietly, "Son, I'm sorry." Theo nodded. "Mom said sad things happen and then more things happen after. Your mom is right. Are you here to fix the porch light?" "Yes, son, I am." "Can I help you?" That was how it started. An 81-year-old man and an 8-year-old boy. 2 hours, 1 porch light, 3 blown fuses, 1 snack break for graham crackers. Theo held the flashlight. He handed Walter the wrong tools at first, then the right ones, after Walter patiently named each. "This one's a Phillips head, see the X-shape. Can you find me one of those?" And when the boy found it, "That's the one, Theo. That's exactly right." Marin stood in the kitchen doorway. She watched her son's face when the old man said those words. She had not seen that face in 3 years. She turned away. She went into the small bathroom. She closed the door. She sat on the closed toilet lid, put her hands over her mouth, and made no sound. When they finished, the porch light held steady, a small warm yellow circle in the gray December morning. Walter left a note on the kitchen counter in careful, blocky electrician's handwriting. The neutral wire was loose. I tightened it. Won't flicker again. W. Marin put that note in a kitchen drawer under the silverware tray that afternoon. She never moved it. 2 days later, Marin brought Eleanor a skein of yarn, soft pale blue. I had this in a closet, Mrs. Brooks. My mother-in-law gave it to me years ago. I never knit a day in my life. Would you want it? And Eleanor's hands, which had been still for 9 days, which had not made anything, had not moved with purpose, had not done the thing they had done for 46 years in classrooms and kitchens and church basements. Her hands remembered themselves the moment they touched the yarn. She set up a folding camp chair outside number 22 on the first day the sun came out. She began to knit. Pippa found her within the hour. 7 years old, pink puffer coat, 2 front teeth too big for her face. She stopped. She watched with her entire body the way only a 7-year-old can watch without pretending not to. Eleanor pretended not to notice for 30 seconds. Then, without looking up, you can come closer if you like. 2 steps closer. What's your name, sweetheart? Pippa. That's a beautiful name. It's short for Philippa. I hate Philippa. Don't call me Philippa. All right, Pippa, I won't. What are you doing? I'm knitting. What's knitting? Eleanor laughed. It was her first real laugh in weeks. A sound she had not known was still available to her, rising out of some unbroken place she had forgotten she had. Oh, Pippa, come here, let me show you. She taught the girl the way she had taught everything for 46 years, slowly, with her hands over the child's hands. This one's called a knit stitch. You go in, you wrap around, you pull through, you slip off, in, around, through, off. Yes, Pippa, just like that. Pippa made the stitch. It was lumpy. It was uneven. It held. I did it. Yes, you did, Pippa. The next day, Pippa came back with Beatrice. 8. Glasses that took up half her face. The day after, they brought Sam. Then 6. Then 11. Eleanor taught them all. She taught them in the gravel beside number 22 in December in Michigan. Her camp chair pulled into the one patch of sun, her voice carrying the patient rhythm of a woman who had spent her life believing that the most important thing you could do for a child was to let them make something with their own hands and then tell them it was good. On the 4th day, Beatrice tangled her yarn. The tangle was bad looped and knotted and pulled tight in 3 places. Beatrice's face went red. Her chin trembled, the edge of tears. Eleanor put her own knitting down. She got up, knees protesting, back stiff from the cold, and went to Beatrice. She knelt in the gravel. She took the tangled yarn from the girl's lap. She worked at it for a full minute, patiently, 1 loop at a time. Beatrice watched. There you go, honey. Try again. Beatrice took the yarn back. She made 1 good stitch. She made another. She looked up at Eleanor the way an 8-year-old looks up at a person who has just saved her life on a very small scale. And she said, without thinking, without planning, "Thanks, Grandma." She caught herself. Her face went white. She looked at her mother, who was standing 10 feet away. She looked at Eleanor. Her voice came out tiny, terrified. "I mean, Mrs. Brooks. Sorry, I'm so sorry, I forgot." Eleanor put both hands on Beatrice's shoulders. She squeezed. She said in a voice that did not crack, "Beatrice, honey, you can call me whatever you like. Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "Grandma Ellie?" "Yes, sweetheart, that's a fine name." "Okay, Grandma Ellie." And she went back to her stitches. That night in the dark of the Winnebago, Eleanor told Walter. She told him about Pippa, about Beatrice, about Grandma Ellie. She did not cry until the very end, and even then it was the quiet kind. Walter listened. He did not speak for a long time. Then his voice came, and it was a voice she had not heard from him in years. The voice of a man who had been holding something back and had finally run out of room for it. Ellie. Harper is 16 now. I know, Walt. We haven't seen Harper in 8 years. I know. Diane wouldn't let us. 8 years, Ellie. I missed all of it. Whatever she likes, whatever she's good at, what her laugh sounds like. I don't even know what she looks like at 16. I would not recognize her on the street. Eleanor turned onto her side. She put her hand on his chest. She felt his heart, the slow, steady rhythm of an old man's heart, still beating, still pushing. Walt? Yeah. Whoever Harper is now, we are going to find out. I promise you that. I don't know how. Not yet. But we are. Ellie, I love you. I love you too, Walt. Sleep now. He slept. She lay in the dark listening to his heart and the lake's slow exhale. And she thought for the first time in 11 days that something had shifted. That maybe by some small mercy she did not entirely understand, she was not going to die in this Winnebago. She was right. But she would not understand how right until 5 days later. 5 days later was a Monday. The day had been ordinary. Eleanor had taught knitting. Walter had spent the afternoon at number 19 fixing Tony Garcia's transistor radio. Marin had stopped by with 2 grilled cheese sandwiches and a small foil-wrapped slice of apple pie from the brewery. By 9 that evening, Eleanor was tired. Tired the way a person gets tired when they have been pretending all day that they are not very tired. Walter had gone to bed early. Eleanor stayed up to finish a row of the small scarf she had decided was for Theo for his birthday in March. At 9:17, she put the knitting down. At 9:18, she stood up. At 9:19, the world tilted. It tilted slowly at first. She would remember that later. As though someone had picked up the Winnebago by one corner and was rotating it gently the way you rotate a snow globe to watch the flakes fall. She put her hand on the folding table. The folding table was not where it had been. Her chest was tight, not the way it had been before. This was different. This was a fist that had reached into her chest from the inside and was closing slowly around something that did not want to be closed around. She tried to call for Walter. She must have called for Walter because Walter came out of the bed in nothing but his pajama pants and old white undershirt. Gray hair standing up saying her name. Ellie, Ellie, Eleanor. The floor was very close to her face. Her hand went to her sleeve, to the handkerchief tucked there. The reflex of weeks, the muscle memory of hiding. But there was nothing to hide now. The handkerchief slipped from her fingers onto the linoleum beside her, unfolded open white against the cold floor. The last clear thought she had before the dark came in around the edges was Theo. I didn't finish his scarf. Walter caught her. Barely. His knees buckled. He was 81 and she was small. But small is still weight, and he caught her and laid her on the cold linoleum and put 2 fingers against her neck. He had been a Korean War medic for 6 months in 1953 before they moved him to electrical. His fingers still remembered after all those years how to find a pulse. It was there, fast and thin, but there. He shouted. He shouted Marin's name. Number 14 was 40 feet away. The walls were thin, but not that thin. Mrs. Tarkington heard. Beverly Tarkington, 71, RV number 7, retired nurse. She had been outside taking down a string of Christmas lights. She had finally gotten around to removing. She heard a man shout, really shout. The way men only shout when something has gone very wrong from the direction of number 22. She dropped the lights. She ran. 71 years old, and she ran those 40-some feet faster than she had moved in 20 years. She came through the door without knocking. One look. Walter, move! He moved. She knelt. 2 fingers on the neck, ear to the chest, eyelid lifted. All of it in about 8 seconds. Then phone. She dialed. She gave the address and the situation in clear, fast nurse's English. While she was on the phone, she was already lifting Eleanor's legs onto the booth seat, already unbuttoning the top button of Eleanor's blouse to give her chest room. On the floor beside Eleanor's hand, the handkerchief lay open, and Mrs. Tarkington glanced at it, then at Eleanor's lips, and her face tightened in the way only a nurse's face tightens when she sees a thing she wishes she hadn't. Walter stood there. He had been moving, fixing, climbing, working for 81 years. In that one moment, watching another woman save his wife on the floor of a Winnebago, Walter Brooks could not move. Marin came running 30 seconds later. Mrs. Tarkington had told Walter to bang on the wall. He had banged. Marin heard. Theo was with her, wrapped in a blanket, wide awake, making no sound, calm. The way certain children are calm in emergencies, as though they have understood something about the world that the adults around them are still trying to learn. Marin's voice steady. "What do you need, was Mrs. Tarkington? Ambulance is 20 minutes out. We can drive her in 12. Corolla." No hesitation. Walter rode in the back with Eleanor in his arms. Mrs. Tarkington had 2 fingers on the inside of Eleanor's wrist and did not let go. Marin drove. She drove the road that had killed Cole. She came to the long curve on M22, and for the first time in 3 years, she looked. She turned her head and looked at the place where the truck had gone over. She said in her head, "Cole, help me. Help me get her there." She drove faster. Theo was in the front passenger seat holding Walter's toolbox. Nobody had asked him to take it. He had grabbed it on the way out of the Winnebago, the way an 8-year-old sometimes understands what is sacred to a person without anyone having to explain. From the back seat fragments, Walter's voice broken into pieces by the road. "Ellie, don't you dare. Ellie, I am not done with you. Stay with me, stay with me, stay." Mrs. Tarkington's fingers on the wrist. 19 minutes. She did not let go. They reached the regional medical center in Traverse City at 5 minutes before 10. The ER team was waiting. Mrs. Tarkington had called ahead from the road. They took Eleanor through doors down a hallway. Walter was kept back. A woman with a clipboard sat him down. In the waiting room, more vinyl chairs, a muted cooking show. A small Christmas tree still up in early January, with a tilted star. Marie and Theo and Mrs. Tarkington waited. Theo sat on his mother's lap. He was too big for that. He was 8. But that night he sat on her lap and held Walter's toolbox and did not open it. He just held it. Dr. Patel came out late that night. He sat across from Walter. He said it plain. "Mr. Brooks, your wife is alive. She's stable for now, but she's in serious trouble. Critical aortic stenosis. The valve in her heart that pumps blood to the rest of her body has narrowed almost completely. Tonight it couldn't push anymore. We're managing it with medication, but medication is temporary. What's the permanent solution? Valve replacement surgery. Open heart. At her age, with her overall condition, there are real risks. But without it, honestly, Mr. Brooks, a few months, not much longer." "How much?" "With Medicare and supplemental, your out-of-pocket will be substantial. Tens of thousands. The hospital has financial counselors who can..." "Doctor." "Yes, Mr. Brooks. We have a few $100s to our name." The silence lasted 3 full seconds, then gently. "Mr. Brooks, I'm going to send a social worker to talk to you about programs, charity care, foundation grants, but the timeline matters. I wouldn't want to wait more than a few weeks." Walter stood. He shook the doctor's hand once firmly with eye contact. "Thank you for being honest, doctor." "Mr. Brooks, I'm sorry." "Yeah." He sat back down. He put his face in his hands. Marin put Theo on the chair next to Mrs. Tarkington. She walked to Walter. She sat beside him. She did not touch him. She just sat there. The way you sit next to someone in a hospital when you do not know them well enough to touch them, but are also somehow the closest person to them in the world at that particular moment. After a long minute, "Walter." He did not look up. Walter, we're going to get her the money. He looked up. His face was the face of a man who had just been told his wife was dying because they were poor. Marin, we don't have anything left. The house is gone. The piano is gone. There is nothing. I know. So how? I don't know yet, but we will. Marin, you don't owe us this. Walter. She waited until he looked at her. I'm not doing this because I owe you. I'm doing this because of a nurse 23 years ago who didn't owe my mother a damn thing. She paused. Now, you sit here with Mrs. Tarkington, with Theo, and you wait. And I am going to start making phone calls. It's the middle of the night. I know. I'll start with the ones that can wait, and then I'll get to the ones that can't. Why? She looked at him. This man whose wife was dying down a hallway. This man she had known for 15 days. This man who had walked 40 feet down a gravel road to earn his neighbor's soup. Because you knelt down in my kitchen and told my boy you were sorry. Because nobody has knelt down in my kitchen in 3 years. Because Cole would have knelt down in your kitchen if it had been the other way around. Because that's what people do, Walter. People kneel down. She squeezed his hand. She got up. She walked toward the doors of the ER. She did not look back. Eleanor stabilized over 3 days. By the end of the week, she was home in the Winnebago with proper medication paid for by a charity grant the hospital social worker had filed from the parking lot at 3 in the morning. She had pills. She had instructions. She had a follow-up appointment. What she did not have was the money. Walter drove the Corolla into Frankfurt on a Tuesday morning. He parked on Main Street in front of a small shop with a hand-painted sign, Lakeshore Pawn. He took a brown paper bag. He went inside. The bell over the door rang. The shop smelled of old books and brass polish. Guitars on the wall, rings under glass. The man behind the counter looked up, about 58. Big, the kind of big men get when they've spent their lives lifting things they should have asked for help with. Flannel shirt, name tag that said Eddie. Morning, sir. Cold one? It is. Walter set the bag on the counter. I need to sell these, all of them. Eddie pulled a tray closer. A jeweler's loop. A small pad and pencil. He opened the bag. He saw the wedding ring first. He saw the Hamilton pocket watch from 1948. He saw the wooden plaque. He saw the Korean service medal. He looked up at Walter. Eddie had been working this counter for many years. He had a system for not asking questions because questions made the work harder, and the work was already hard enough. But this morning, a wedding ring and a 1948 Hamilton and a Korean service medal on his counter at the same time in the hands of a man who was clearly 80-something and clearly not all right. Eddie broke his own rule. Sir, may I ask your name? Walter Brooks. Brooks. Eddie set the loop down. Of Forest Avenue. That was us. Eddie's hands went still on the counter. Sir, my mother was Hannah Kowalski. Walter looked up. She was in your wife's 3rd grade class, Frankfurt Elementary, 1972. Walter said it slowly, the way a man says something he is pulling up from a very deep well. Hannah. Yes, sir. Hannah with the clay turkey. Eddie's face changed. Something moved behind it, something that had been stored there for a long time waiting. You remember the turkey. Eleanor remembers everything, son. My mother kept that turkey 40 years, through 3 moves, 2 husbands, cancer. She died last March. I'm sorry, son. I cleaned out her house in May, top of the closet, wrapped in tissue paper, a clay turkey with my mother's name carved in the bottom in 3rd grade letters. Walter did not speak. My mother told me that story 100 times. She said her own mother called the turkey a potato. She said Mrs. Brooks said it was a turkey. She said Mrs. Brooks was the first grown-up who ever told her something she had made was good. without lying. Walter felt something happen in his throat. He did not say it. He just nodded. Eddie pushed the paper bag back across the counter. All 4 items, back to Walter's side. Mr. Brooks, I am not taking these. Son, I need to sell them. I'm not taking them. Eddie went to a small file cabinet behind the counter. Second drawer. He pulled out an envelope, old-tan the corners worn smooth. He set it on the counter. Mr. Brooks, my mother left me this envelope when she died. She left a note on it. The note said, Eddie, this is for an emergency that is not yours. You will know when. Walter stared at the envelope. Eddie. Sir, my mother was 40 years old when she died. Ovarian cancer. She raised me alone on what she made cleaning houses. She didn't have a lot, but she put some away. And she said, Eddie, you will know when it is the right one. He pushed the envelope forward. Mr. Brooks, this is the right emergency. Son, I cannot. Sir, my mother spent 40 years remembering a 3rd grade teacher who told her a clay turkey was good when nobody else would. Do you understand what I am saying? Yes. Take the envelope, Mr. Brooks. Eddie walked to the register. He opened it. He counted out a second envelope. He put it on the counter. He pushed both toward Walter. And take this one too. You don't pay me back. You don't argue. You just say thank you. And you take them. And you go home. Walter looked at him. He could not speak. He nodded. He picked up the envelopes. He picked up the paper bag, the ring, the watch, the plaque, the medal, all still inside. He walked out into the gray January morning. He stood on the sidewalk, his eyes filled. He did not let them fall. He had been keeping a promise to a girl in a borrowed wedding dress for a very long time. And this morning, he had taken one more step toward keeping it. Marin sold the truck on a Friday. Cole's truck, the 1999 Ford F-150 metallic blue, with the dent on the rear door from the fire hydrant. The event Cole had refused to live down. It had been in the shed behind her RV, covered untouched for 3 years. She had not been able to drive it. She had not been able to sell it. She had not been able to do anything with it except know it was there. Henrik Olsen came to look at it, 46, a mechanic with a shop south of town. He had known Cole not well, but a little. He walked around the truck. He did not pop the hood. He did not check the tires. He came up to Marin. He took off his cap. He held it. Mrs. Halverson, I'm going to give you more than you listed it for. Mr. Olsen, ma'am, I knew your husband. Not well, but I knew him. He was good people. And the truck, it's a clean truck. It's worth what I'm offering. She did not believe him. She knew he was overpaying by at least $2,000. She looked at the truck. She looked at the dent. Mr. Olsen. Mrs. Halverson, take the money. Save the woman, please. She took the money. She signed the title. She watched Henrik drive Cole's truck out of the gravel lot for the last time. She did not let herself feel it until the truck was out of sight. Then she felt it. For about 90 seconds, standing in the gravel with her arms at her sides, she let herself feel what it cost to let go of the last machine her husband's hands had touched. Then she went inside. She added it to the total. She called Pastor Whitaker. Mrs. Tarkington gave her lockbox. Pastor Whitaker told the story from the pulpit without naming names. The basket at the back. A stranger in Wisconsin sent a check with a note. My mother died alone in a nursing home. I never visited. Please save someone for me. By mid-January, they had enough. Barely, but enough. That night, Walter sat on the edge of the bed. He took Eleanor's hand. Ellie. Walt, I have to tell you some things. He told her everything. Eddie's envelopes, Hannah Kowalski's emergency fund, Henrik Olsen and the truck, Mrs. Tarkington's lockbox, the basket at the back, the stranger in Wisconsin. By the time he finished, Eleanor was holding his hand so hard her knuckles had gone white. Walt, we're going to live. Yes, Ellie, we're going to live. I don't understand what we did to deserve. Ellie, we didn't do anything. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? It works because somewhere a long time ago you told a little girl named Hannah Kowalski that her clay turkey was a turkey. And it works because 23 years ago a night nurse bought a strawberry milkshake for a dying woman she didn't know. And it works because 3 years ago a young man named Cole Halverson taught his wife how to be brave. All of those things, Ellie, all of those things have been quietly, patiently waiting for this week to come back to us. She put her face into his shoulder. She did not speak for a long time. Then, Walt, yeah, I want to live. I want to teach Theo to make French toast the way your mother made it. And I want to teach Pippa to purl. She's been wanting to learn. I keep telling her next week, Pippa Pearl is for next week. All right, Ellie. And Walt. Yeah. I want to be Harper's grandmother again, before I die. I don't care how long it takes, but before I die, promise me. I promise Ellie. He had no idea that night how that promise was going to come true, but it was. The surgery was in late January, nearly 6 hours. In the waiting room, Walter Marin Theo, Mrs. Tarkington, Russ Taverner, who had driven up despite never having met Eleanor face to face just because somebody from the park ought to be here. Pastor Whitaker, the Quintero family who brought tamales, Whitney with Beatrice, Pippa with her mother, Tony Garcia with the transistor radio Walter had fixed. 12 people filled the cardiac care waiting room. Dr. Patel came out late that afternoon, mask pulled down around his neck. Mr. Brooks. Walter stood. The whole room stood. Dr. Patel looked at them all. His voice came quiet and clear. She's strong, Mr. Brooks. The valve is in. She's stable. She's not awake yet, but she's going to be. Walter sat down. Theo climbed onto his lap. Too big for that. 8 years old and too big. But Theo climbed up anyway. Walter put his face in the boy's hair, and Theo, knowing the way Theo always somehow knew, patted his shoulder with a small hand, the way you would pat a friend. Eleanor came home on the 1st of February, thin, a careful scar down the front of her chest. New pills, proper ones. A heart that for the first time in 2 years was pushing blood the way a heart was supposed to. She came home to a banner across number 22 in Pippa's wobbly handwriting. Welcome home, Grandma Ellie. A foil-wrapped lasagna from Tony Garcia. A string of white lights on the awning weeks past Christmas. But Mrs. Tarkington had decided Eleanor needed to come home to lights. She sat in her camp chair that first afternoon. She did not knit. She just sat. She watched Theo running between 14 and 22 with an extension cord. She watched Pippa inspect the lasagna. She watched Mrs. Tarkington fold a blanket. She watched Walter sit on the metal step with his head in his hands, not crying, just resting. She thought, this is a family. She thought the world had this all along. It just had to take Forest Avenue away from us first. She thought I would not trade this back. And that was the moment on the camp chair in the gravel in the pale February light that Eleanor Brooks let go of the house on Forest Avenue. She did not announce it. She did not tell Walter. She just let it go quietly, the way you let go of things after 78 years. You just do. Then the video came. Diane's video, posted on a Thursday evening. Her kitchen carefully lit, hair carefully done, tears carefully streaming. She looked into the camera and said, to anyone watching, I need help. My elderly parents are being manipulated by a stranger. A younger woman has moved them into a trailer park, isolated them from family, taken control of their finances. I have been unable to see my own parents for weeks. Please share this video. Please help me protect my parents. She did not tag Marin by name. She did not have to. Within 48 hours, 2 anonymous calls had been filed with Adult Protective Services about Marin Halverson. The brewery received emails from customers saying they would not patronize an establishment that employed that woman. A note appeared in handwriting on Theo Halverson's locker at school. 4 words. Your mom is a thief, unsigned. And Marin Halverson was fired. Not by Eckhart the cook who would have quit before he let it happen. By the owner who called her into the back office and said, Marin, I'm so sorry, but the optics, I have a business. I'm so sorry. She walked out with her last paycheck on a Wednesday afternoon. She drove home. She sat in the Corolla in the gravel lot for 45 minutes before she could go inside. When she went in, Theo was at the kitchen table. Math homework. He looked up. Mom. Yeah. Is it bad, me, Usio? Is it bad, Mom? She sat down. She put her arms around him. She held her boy. He let her. After 30 seconds, without looking up from his math, he said, Mom. Yeah, baby. Grandpa Walt said when bad things happen, sometimes you just have to keep going. So we'll keep going. Right? She held him tighter. Right, baby. We'll keep going. What Marin did not know, what nobody at Lakeshore RV Park knew, was that at that exact moment in a house in Grand Rapids, a 16-year-old girl named Harper Brooks Ashford was sitting on her bedroom floor with her mother's laptop open in front of her. She had borrowed it for an essay. She had opened a new tab. She had accidentally seen the tab her mother had left open. It was Diane's email. The first message at the top of the inbox sent to her mother's attorney. The subject line read, Brooks Parcel Trust Challenge Strategy. Harper, who was 16 and who had inherited from her grandmother not just the same chin but the same dangerous instinct towards stubbornness in the face of wrong things, clicked the email. Then the one below it. Then the one below that. She scrolled all the way back. She read for 2 hours. She did not slam the laptop. She did not call her mother. She got a USB drive from her desk. She copied every email in the thread. She labeled the drive Geometry Homework. She put it in her backpack. She closed the laptop. She placed it exactly where her mother had left it. She went downstairs. She made herself a peanut butter sandwich. She ate it. She thought for 3 days. On the 4th day, she told her father she was going to a friend's house. She got in the old Volvo. She drove 3 hours north on M22. She drove to Frankfurt. She drove to Lakeshore RV Park. She walked down the gravel row. She knocked on the door of number 22. Eleanor opened the door. She did not recognize the girl at first. Harper had been 7 the last time Eleanor had seen her. This Harper was 16, tall, her grandmother's chin, her grandfather's eyes, a thrift store sweatshirt over a white t-shirt. This Harper said, Grandma, it's me, Harper. Eleanor stood in the doorway for one long second. Then, oh, sweetheart. Then she opened her arms. Harper, 16, 6 inches taller than her grandmother, came down into the doorway and fell forward into the arms of a woman she had not seen in 8 years. And Harper, who had held it together for 3 days, who had held it together for 3 hours on M22, let it go. Eleanor held her. Her voice came soft against the girl's hair. It's all right, baby. You're here now. You're here. Harper pulled back. She reached into her sweatshirt pocket. She pulled out a small USB drive, Geometry Homework written on it in blue marker. She put it in her grandmother's hand. Grandma, I love Mom, but what she did, it's not right, and I had to. Eleanor closed her fingers around the drive. She looked at her granddaughter. She took the girl's face in both hands, the way she had taken Walter's face in 1961, the way she had held Beatrice's shoulders in the gravel, the way she had held every important thing in her life, firmly, gently, with the full weight of everything she knew. Harper, look at me. Harper looked. You are not in trouble. You did the bravest thing. Your mother is not in trouble because of you. Your mother is in trouble because of your mother. Do you understand? Yes? Then come inside. We have a lot of catching up to do. She stepped back. She led her granddaughter into the Winnebago. She closed the door. She called toward the back, her voice carrying for the first time in months the sound of a woman who had something to look forward to. Walter, come here, dear. There is someone I want you to meet. The hearing was in late May. Benzie County Courthouse, Beulah, Michigan. Judge Margaret Holcomb presiding. The gallery was full. Russ Taverner sat in the 3rd row in a dress shirt he had clearly ironed himself, the collar slightly crooked. Mrs. Tarkington wore her yellow cardigan and her one pair of dress slacks. Pastor Whitaker had his Bible but did not open it. The Quintero family filled most of the fourth row. Tony Garcia sat with the transistor radio in his lap. He did not turn it on. He just held it the way a man holds something. A friend fixed for him when he wants that friend to know he is there. Frank Beecher had put out his pipe for the occasion. Pippa sat between her mother's knees, very still, understanding, in the way children understand serious rooms. Beatrice had her glasses cleaned. Henrik Olsen sat in the back row near the door cap in his hands. Eddie Kowalski had closed his shop for the morning and driven up from Frankfurt without telling anyone he was coming. Even Dr. Patel had cleared his afternoon clinic. In the front row, Walter Eleanor Marin Theo, who at 8 was too young to fully understand, but had said at breakfast that morning with his mouth full of toast, "Mom, I want to be there for Grandpa Walt and Grandma Ellie." And Marin had not been able to say no. And beside Marin, Harper, 16, white blouse, navy skirt, hair pulled back, her grandmother's chin set. Diane sat at the defense table next to her attorney. She did not look at the gallery. She did not look at Harper. Harper looked at her. Harper looked at her mother for 1 full minute, not with anger, not with accusation, but with something harder to bear than either. Steadiness. The gaze of a girl who loved her mother and had turned her in anyway, and was not sorry, and would carry the weight of both those truths for the rest of her life. Diane looked down at the table. Imogen Lockhart presented the case in 40 minutes. She was precise. She was quiet. She did not raise her voice. The emails were entered as evidence. Diane's attorney did not challenge them. He could not have. When Diane took the stand, Imogen asked 3 questions. "Mrs. Brooks Ashford, in one of your emails to your attorney, you wrote, 'Mom can't read fine print. Dad trusts me, they'll sign.' Do you recognize that email?" "Yes." "Did you know when you presented your parents with the trust paperwork that your mother required a particular heart medication to keep her alive?" I knew she took medication." "Did you ever ask in the weeks after you placed them in the Winnebago whether they had enough money to pay for it?" "No." No further questions. Diane started to step down. She got halfway out of the witness box. Then she stopped. Imogen would tell people later that she had seen this happen only a handful of times in her career. The moment a person who has been holding a story together with both hands suddenly lets go of the whole thing at once. Diane turned to the gallery. Her voice started shaking and ended at a pitch that made the court reporter stop typing. "They were old. They were going to die anyway. Bradley, do you have any idea what it is to have your husband ruin your life? Do you know what it's like to wake up at 3 in the morning and find out he's gambled your retirement? I needed that land. It was supposed to be mine. It was always supposed to be mine." The courtroom held its breath. Somewhere in the back, someone exhaled. Judge Holcomb's voice came very quiet. "Mrs. Brooks Ashford, sit down." Diane sat down on the witness stand floor, just folded, like a paper bag. Her attorney walked her back to the defense table. She did not look at anyone the entire way. Walter stood up. Imogen put a hand on his arm. Her whisper carried, "Mr. Brooks, you don't have to." "I have to." He did not go to the witness stand. He walked to the front of the courtroom and stood facing his daughter. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Every person in that room could hear him, because every person in that room had stopped breathing. "Diane, your mother hung your Christmas stocking on our fireplace every year for 40 years, even the years you didn't come home, even the year you didn't call." He paused. "You sold the fireplace." He let that land. He let it land the way only a man who has been an electrician for 42 years lets something land with precision in exactly the right place at exactly the right depth. "I forgive you. I forgive you because I'm an old man and I do not have the strength to carry anger anymore. But your mother nearly died in an old Winnebago because of what you did, and I do not know if I can forgive that. I do not know if I will in the years I have left. I am being honest with you, because lying to you is what made all of this possible in the first place, and I am done with that. He walked back to his seat. He sat down. Eleanor took his hand. The courtroom was silent in the way that courtrooms are silent when something has been said that no one will forget. The sentence came 2 weeks later. 3 years suspended to 18 months supervised probation. Community service at the county senior services facility. Full restitution. Permanent surrender of her real estate license. The trust transfer voided. The house on Forest Avenue and the Lakeshore Drive parcel returned to Walter and Eleanor's names. Bradley did not come to the sentencing. Bradley had already filed for divorce. In the hallway afterward, Diane approached. She said, "Mama, Daddy." Walter looked at her. His voice came quiet and tired, the way a man's voice comes when he has said everything he has to say and has only one question left. "Diane, did you come back because you missed your mother, or because you missed the land?" The silence was long. The silence said everything. Walter nodded. The small, sad nod of a man whose worst suspicion has just been confirmed by the one person he wished would have denied it. Eleanor stepped forward. She put her hand on her daughter's cheek, gently, the way she had once put her hand on that same cheek when it was small and flushed with fever. And she had been a young mother who still believed she could keep every bad thing in the world from touching her child. "Diane, I love you. I always have. I always will. But love does not mean pretending. You need to become someone again before you can come back to us. I will pray for you to find her." She lowered her hand. She turned to Harper. "Harp, sweetheart, you come whenever you want." "Yes, Grandma." "Every weekend if you want." "Yes." "And summers." "Yes." "Good." Eleanor took Walter's hand on one side. She took Marin's on the other. They walked out of the courthouse into the late spring afternoon. Theo skipping ahead, Harper following just behind, and Diane stood alone on the courthouse steps, watching her parents leave with a family that was not the one she had been born into, but was by every measure that mattered the one they had chosen. That evening, Eleanor went to RV number 7. She brought a small lap blanket she had knitted in February, pale lavender finish during her recovery, saved without knowing who it was for. She knocked. Mrs. Tarkington opened the door. Eleanor came in. She sat at the small table. She set the blanket down, and for the first time she really looked at the photograph on Mrs. Tarkington's wall. It had been there the whole time. A small black and white print. A younger Mrs. Tarkington, maybe 40 in nurse's whites, standing beside a hospital bed. In the bed, a thin woman with dark hair. The woman was smiling. The Mrs. Tarkington of the photograph was holding a small paper cup. "Beverly, who is in this picture?" "Oh, that was a patient of mine from a long time ago. Frankfurt Memorial. She was 30-something, breast cancer. She had a little girl. I sat with her at the end." "What was her name?" "Lillian. Lillian Whittam." "And the little girl?" "I'm Marin. I think her name was Marin." Eleanor did not say anything. She waited. Mrs. Tarkington's hands, which had been folding a dishcloth, went still. "Oh." Her voice came very small. "Oh, dear God." She sat down slowly. "Marin Halverson. She is Lillian's Marie." Eleanor nodded. "Eleanor, she has been my neighbor for 2 years. I never knew. I never asked. She never said. I don't remember her face from then. She was so small and so much time." "Beverly, the strawberry milkshake." Mrs. Tarkington's eyes filled. "I bought one for Lillian every shift the last week. She couldn't drink it by then, but she liked the smell." Her voice was breaking now the way ice breaks on a lake in March, slowly then all at once. And there was a little girl in the room. I bought one for her too, so she would have something. I bought her a strawberry milkshake on her mother's last night, and I sat with her. And I told her, honey, somebody is going to remember you tonight. Don't ever forget that somebody did. I said that to a child whose mother was dying because I did not know what else to say. Eleanor reached across the table. She took Beverly's hand. Beverly, she remembered you. She has been waiting her whole life to give it back to someone. Oh, Eleanor. And she gave it back to us, to Walter and me. She gave us your strawberry milkshake on a metal step in 8 below weather with a Tupperware of chicken soup, and we are alive because of it. Mrs. Tarkington could not speak. She held Eleanor's hand. Tears ran down the grooves of her face, the face of a woman who had spent 48 years being steady for other people, and was now in the kitchen of an RV in Michigan, being held steady by someone else. Eleanor said, Beverly, I think it might be time for you to tell her. The dinner was the following Sunday. Eleanor cooked. Pot roast Walter's mother's recipe. Onions, carrots, red potatoes, and a quarter cup of strong black coffee in the bottom of the pan. The secret Walter's mother had finally written down for Eleanor in 1964. Biscuits, apple pie. Marin came with Theo. Mrs. Tarkington came in her yellow cardigan. Harper came down from Grand Rapids. Pastor Whitaker came. Russ Taverner drove up. The Quinteros came. They filled the Winnebago and spilled out onto the gravel where Walter had set up 2 card tables with mismatched chairs. The June evening was warm. The lake was quiet. Somebody had brought string lights. They ate. They laughed. Theo and Harper discovered each other immediately the way an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old sometimes do when they are both being raised by the same village without anyone having planned it. After the pot roast and before the pie, Mrs. Tarkington stood up. She looked at Marin. She said, Marin, may I tell you a story? She told it the way old nurses tell stories gently, with attention to the small details that mattered. She told her about Lillian, about the strawberry milkshake, about a small girl in a hospital chair on a March night, and the things she had said to her, and the things she had been quietly hoping for 23 years that the girl had heard. When she was done, Marin's hand was over her mouth. She got up. She walked around the table. She put her arms around Beverly Tarkington and did not let go for a long time. Then into the old woman's shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. Bev, I remembered the milkshake, the smell of strawberry. I just never knew the face that brought it. I know, honey. I have been remembering you my entire adult life. And I am so glad I have you back to say thank you. Beverly held her. She said quietly into Marin's hair, Honey, you said thank you to me 1,000 times before tonight. Every time you were kind to a stranger, you said thank you. I just didn't know you were saying it to me. They sold most of the Lakeshore Drive parcel to the Frankfurt Land Conservancy for a fraction of what the developer had offered. The Conservancy preserved it as protected dune habitat, the kind of land that belongs to the lake and the wind and the birds that return to it every spring without being asked. They kept a small parcel adjacent to the RV park. They bought the park from Russ at his asking price, no haggling, and Russ moved to Arizona to live with Becca and his grandchildren. He cried when he hugged Walter goodbye. Walter pretended not to notice. Russ pretended Walter was pretending. The new sign at the gate read, Ellie's Corner. Below it in smaller letters, Welcome Neighbor. Walter's workshop went up in the spring. A small wood-framed building next to number 22-2 workbenches, a wall of tools. He fixed things for free for anyone who came down the row. Theo became his official assistant. Theo had grown 2 inches. Eleanor's knitting circle met every Wednesday at 3 in the old community room. Pippa was there. Beatrice was there. Harper when she came up for weekends. They built a small playground near the lake. Cole's Corner. Theo helped Marin plant the flower bed. Beside it, a garden, Lillian's garden. Mrs. Tarkington and Marin tended it together. Lavender and tomatoes and a single row of sweet peas because Lillian had loved sweet peas. Walter and Eleanor gave Marin a small parcel of land next to her RV spot. They paid for the house built there over the spring, 2 bedrooms, a small porch, a blue door. Because Marin had once mentioned in passing the house on Park Avenue with the blue door she had been driving past for 2 years and dreaming about. Marin tried to refuse. Walter said, "Marin, you will accept this or I will be very upset." Marin accepted. They set up a college fund for Theo and told Marin after the fact. There was nothing to be done. Diane wrote every month from her community service. Some letters were sorry, some were angry, some were just lists of things she had done that day. Eleanor did not write back at first. After 6 months, she began sending short notes. Diane, we received your letter. We hope you are well. Love, Mama. It was not forgiveness, but it was the first loop in a chain that might, given enough patience and enough time, become something that could hold. It is a Sunday evening in late June, a year and a half after the 8th night. The sun is going down over Lake Michigan. The light is the color of old honey, warm and thick and slow, the kind of light that seems to know exactly where to fall. The wind of the lake is gentle tonight. It does not sound like something alive anymore. It sounds like a friend. Eleanor Brooks is 79. She is in her camp chair outside number 22. Her hair is white. The scar beneath her cardigan is fading. She's knitting a small yellow blanket for the baby the Quinteros are expecting in August. Her hands move the way they have always moved, steadily. Surely the way hands move when they have spent a lifetime making things for other people and have no intention of stopping. Walter is on the metal step beside her. He is drinking a beer. He has not had a beer in 5 years. He decided this summer that 1 beer on Sundays was a reasonable concession to the fact of being alive, and he has enjoyed every single one of them more than any beer in the previous 6 decades. He is 82, new glasses, a hearing aid that mostly works. His hands are the same hands. Marin walks across the gravel carrying 2 cups of tea on a small wooden tray. She's 35. She works at the hospital now records department full-time benefits and is taking 1 nursing class a semester at the community college. She's wearing a sundress, the first one in 5 years. She sits on the step next to Walter. She hands 1 cup to Eleanor. "Mrs. Brooks, tea." Eleanor laughs. "Sweetheart, Eleanor." Or Ellie, or when it feels right, something else. Marin smiles. She does not say the something else. Not tonight, but soon, on the day she means it most. Theo and Harper are playing catch with a baseball Walter has rubbed with linseed oil. Theo is 9 now. Harper is 16. They throw the ball back and forth across the gravel in the golden light. They miss it more than they catch it. They are laughing. Pippa comes running from the direction of the knitting circle, a small ball of yarn in her fist, calling, Grandma Ellie, I finished my scarf." Eleanor lifts her hand. Pippa runs over. She holds up the scarf. It is lumpy. It is uneven. The colors don't match. But it holds together, the way some things made carefully by small hands just hold together. Eleanor takes it. She runs her fingers along the stitches. She looks up at Pippa. "Pippa, Pippa, Pippa, this is the most beautiful scarf I have ever seen." Pippa runs back to her mother. In the workshop, the door is open. Tony Garcia's radio is playing something with a slow guitar. A man named Wendell is waiting on a porch repair. Walter will get to him after dinner. There is no rush. There is in Ellie's corner no rush for anything. Mrs. Tarkington is in Lillian's garden, deadheading the sweet peas. The smell of them carries on the warm air light, faintly floral. The kind of smell that doesn't announce itself, but simply arrives the way certain kindnesses arrive, without fanfare, without expectation, and stay. Pastor Whitaker is walking up the gravel road carrying a blueberry pie. He always brings pie on Sundays. Marin puts her head just briefly on Eleanor's shoulder. Eleanor reaches up. She puts her hand on Marin's hair. She says very quietly, "Marin, yeah. Do you know what you really gave me?" "Eleanor, please." "No, sweetheart. Listen, while I can." She does not mean while she can because she's dying. She's not dying. She means while she can, because none of us, not one, knows how much longer we have to say the things that matter. You did not save my life. The surgery saved my life. The doctor saved my life. The money saved my life. What you and Theo gave Walter and me, none of them could have. Eleanor, you gave us one more summer to be somebody's grandparents. Her voice is steady. Her hands are still on the knitting. Before December, I had already accepted that I was going to die forgotten in an old Winnebago with my husband. Two people the world had thrown away. You did not just keep me alive, Marin. You made being alive mean something again. Marin's eyes fill. She does not try to stop them. Eleanor pats her hair. The sun goes down a little farther. Walter gets up. He goes to the door of number 22. He takes down from a small hook the yellow scarf, the one Eleanor finished knitting for Theo in February, the one delivered with much ceremony on a Saturday morning in April. It has hung on their door ever since, the door with the yellow scarf. He carries it across the gravel. He walks to the small house with the blue door where Marin and Theo live now. He hangs the scarf on the hook by the door, the hook where Marin had been thinking about putting a wreath. She doesn't need a wreath. She has the scarf. He turns around. He walks back. He sits on the metal step next to his wife. He puts his arm around her shoulders. Eleanor reaches into the pocket of her cardigan. She takes out a handkerchief. It is clean. It is white. It is folded the way she has always folded handkerchiefs, corners to center, to edge a small tight square. She has not coughed into it in months. She has not hidden it under a pillow. She has not needed to. She puts it in Marin's hand. Marin looks down at it. She looks up at Eleanor. Eleanor's voice comes soft. I don't need to hide anymore, sweetheart. Marin closes her fingers around the handkerchief. She holds it against her chest. She does not need to ask what it means. She knows what it means. It means I was alone and you found me. It means I was dying in the dark and you knocked. It means this small square of cloth carried every secret I was too afraid to show my husband. And now I am giving it to you because I have no secrets left. Because you gave me a life in which I do not need them. The lake exhales once, long and slow. The light is almost gone now, just a thin gold line along the water, where the sun held on as long as it could. On the pine branch in the window of number 22, the branch that Walter cut in December, that still stands in its coffee can of sand, that Eleanor has never let anyone take down. The paper chain hangs. The paper chain Maggie Olson made in an after-school classroom decades ago. The red has gone almost to pink. The green has gone almost to gray. The glue has gone brown. But every loop holds the next. And beside it on the same branch, new loops. Bright ones, red and green and blue and yellow. Pippa made 3. Beatrice made 4. Theo made 2 big, uneven, unmistakably his. Harper added 1 on her last visit, purple, her favorite color. The old chain and the new chain hang together on the same branch. They are not the same chain. They were not made by the same hands. They were not made in the same year or the same decade, or for the same reason. But they are connected now loop to loop, the old holding the new giving the old, a reason to keep holding. Some people are born into family. The lucky ones get to choose it, and the very luckiest, the rarest, the ones who did not ask for it, who could not have earned it, who simply on the 8th night of a long winter opened a door to a stranger holding soup. The very luckiest are chosen back. Before you close your eyes tonight, who was your paper chain? Who held you together when the glue was going brown? Tell me in the comments, and if you haven't yet, subscribe. Because stories like Eleanor's deserve to be remembered, and the people who remember them. People like you listening right now, still here at the end. You are the newest loop. Good night.